Was that a thumbs up, Troy? Thank you. I guess there's a glare. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming again to talk about liveaboard rates at the Garrison Bight Marina. We have a special guest tonight, Chip Casper of the National Weather Service, came across the street. We just want to talk. He's going to talk briefly about hurricane season, and he handles our marine forecasting. Where, as you know, most of you have been in town long enough to know what a treasure it is to have these guys in town. So he's going to give a short presentation, and then I'll talk about how we're going to talk tonight about the rate increase. So Chip, thank you, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Steve. Not sure what it's better to talk about, rates or hurricanes. I don't know. That's a tough one right there. But if you see me around town this time of year, it's usually hurricane season. And I was just looking at the calendar, and I think we're about 10 days away to the beginning of the 2025 campaign here. So you can see we call that kind of like a fireplace graphic up there, where we look at the number of total tropical storms and hurricanes over a period of time. In this case, it's something like 75 years. And on the bottom, you see the months of hurricane season, which, June 1st through November 30th. And where we're at, which is right at the beginning. We usually start slow, which is nice. It gives us some time to get our plans together and get ready. And then the season really takes off usually abruptly by mid-August. And then some of the most historic hurricanes in the Florida Keys have occurred during the months of September and October, and you can see that on the graph here. That's our busiest time, really August 20th through October 20th. I would say good 80% of the total cyclone energy is kind of contained in that area. There are exceptions, of course. We've seen them. We've seen a 4th of July storm a few years ago with Tropical Storm Elsa and Tropical Storm Agnes, which turned into Hurricane Agnes in the Gulf back in 1972. So occasionally we'll see something form right over us in late May, even this time of year. But of course, nothing on the horizon right now, thankfully. But I wanted to review just a little bit about our risk locally. If you've been here for any length of time, you're probably very much aware of that. And then really it's a good time of year to review the toolbox of what we have in terms of plans and what's happening around the Keys in terms of protective actions in advance of tropical storms and hurricanes, and then what you can do to stay proactive, in keeping yourselves and your families and your businesses safe. So first we'll look at just kind of the typical, a different way of looking at the evolution of the season month by month. This is sort of a plan view of the whole basin, the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf, the Caribbean, and all the areas around that. And you can see in the month of June, it's the activity is fairly on the light side. If anything does develop, it's close by, usually somewhere close to Florida or the Gulf. It perks up a little bit in July, but August is really when you start to see the other colors pop up, the yellows and the reds and the oranges, and then the Cape Verde systems coming off of Africa becoming more numerous and more intense, and then that peaks in September. And then during the month of October, there's a fairly rapid drop-off across the basin, but locally, we have to keep our eyes to the south. A lot of our October storms will originate over the Caribbean, the Western Caribbean, and then kind of move northward. So, that's something to keep in mind in the Keys. If you look at historically, September storms, a lot of September storms will originate as an African wave, and, storms like Irma, which you have a lot of time to watch and a lot of time to prepare, especially if the forecast is stable like it was for Irma. Whereas, something like Hurricane Wilma in 2005 starts as a festering seedling in the Western Caribbean that could kind of pulse for days until it gets organized, and then it treks northward real quick. And you may not have 5 or 6 days to prepare. You may have 2 or 3. And then if we look at recently, a lot of the really intense storms that have made landfall in the United States and elsewhere, the ones that undergo what we call rapid intensification, into like a category 4 or 5 storm, those will typically do so very near the coast. And so you may only have, 48 hours to prepare. Now, we hope that doesn't happen, but these are things to keep in mind, with an uncertain hazard like a hurricane. I always say that, hurricanes are really fascinating. They're a great news story. A lot of people on social media are attracted to storms like flies, and, they put out a lot of content, as it were. I'll call it content. Not all of it's very good. As a meteorologist and as emergency managers in the community, what we're really concerned about are these hazards. It's not sort of the drama of the news story of a storm and where it is going and is it going to hit me and is it going here or is it going there. It's really your own risk with respect to storm surge flooding, destructive core winds, rainfall, waterspouts and tornadoes, and then the maritime impacts. And of course, in the Keys, the maritime impacts are very, very important. And that's why we have a National Weather Service office here in the Keys. That's why we have a well-organized emergency management group in the Keys, and because we have to really look at these hazards very seriously. So what you can do as part of your toolbox is know your risk for water and wind. If you have a home, know your elevation. If you're on the water, you're at a particularly high risk. But know those details, of what's vulnerable in terms of you and your possessions. Now's the time to prepare, really, because once a storm threatens, you're in the cone. The timeline really crunches up. You have your hours of daylight to prepare are even less, and it could get overwhelming very quickly. So if you can be proactive now while it's quiet and calm, that's the best. Understand forecast information. Not everything you get on your phone is really, really quality information, frankly. There's a lot out there. I would know as a consumer, just as a consumer of anything, know what you're getting. And if they don't tell you, ask. And understand that you do have a local National Weather Service office that your tax dollars fund, and our mission is not clicks or likes. It's to protect life and property. And so our sole concern is to use applied science to provide the best information for our community to stay safe. Get moving when a storm threatens. If you have a plan, which you should, put that plan into action for sure. Stay protected during storms. If it's just a weaker storm and there's no evacuation in place, stay protected, and use caution after the storms too. We've seen an increase in deaths, and casualties after landfalls. Hurricane Helene last year, unfortunately, was an example of that. Take action today. If you don't have a plan, go to ready.gov or monroecounty.gov and look up some templates and put your plan together. And I can't say this enough. A boat is no place to be in a hurricane. I know we have a lot of folks living on boats in the Keys. We have a lot of cruisers that come through the Keys, a lot of people on the hook. A boat's no place to be in a hurricane. If you look at your hull and your mast and your boom, and let's say you take everything else off, for a 36-foot Catalina, which weighs 14,000 pounds, you're talking about 266 square feet of windage. And then if we look at the different categories of hurricane wind force, and hurricane wind force grows exponentially with speed. So, a Category 5 is not 5 times as powerful as a 1. It's more like 30 times as powerful as a 1. And the damage created is more like 500 times that of a 1. So it's exponential. And keep in mind, we haven't seen anything more than a Category 1 in Key West proper, probably in decades. I'll say that again. We have not seen anything more than a Category 1 force, sustained hurricane force wind in Key West proper in decades. And it's a totally different animal once you get up to Cat 3, 4, and 5. So, a Category 2 hurricane's wind force, for example, is nearly the weight of that boat I just talked about. A boat's no place to be in a hurricane. I mean, just looking at this example, there's more windage than just the hull and the boom and the mast. You have, biminis and solar panels and, all kinds of different things in there. And that adds to the force. Square footage of one mast, for example, is 48 square foot. Furled jib would be about equal to that, and that already increases the force. And then what about these other, sources of windage? You can really get up there with the force per square foot really quickly, up to 40% increase in load. So don't ride it out. There's nowhere on the water is safe. And if you haven't gotten it yet, there's this little brochure, a little kind of little bookmark type card here that we put together a few years ago with the city of Key West, Monroe County, the Coast Guard, and the National Weather Service. And it's specifically for folks around the water who are living on the water, especially in a port. There's a lot of protective actions made by the county, evacuation, for example, in advance of a hurricane. But the ports are special. That's the captain of the port of the Coast Guard, Captain Jason Ingram right now. And they have a system of conditions up to closure of the port. And this will be distributed widely by the Coast Guard, by the Weather Service, by the city on our social media sites. And it's really important to know those categories, those port conditions, and those are listed right here. We have plenty of these brochures up here, and you can get it online as well. And sometimes, no matter how well you're prepared, you're only as good as your weakest link, weakest neighbor, or just bad luck, as happened to Captain Sharp's vessel here during Hurricane Irma. Okay, so some tools. The City of Key West has some great tools. This Civic Ready notification, you can go to that QR code right there or that website and sign up for their alerts, and that'll let you know exactly what you need to know in terms of the City of Key West. And then Alert Monroe's kind of a similar notification for the county, for Monroe County. And then finally, for weather information, I got all kinds of goodies for you, and I printed this slide out over here, and so you can take one of those, or just take a picture here. But we have the Tropical Weather Outlook is a nice daily briefing tool during hurricane season. It'll just show you areas of interest that we in the National Hurricane Center are monitoring every day. And then below that is our local hazardous weather outlook. This is kind of a nice little matrix with little colors. It'll show you kind of what the hazards are on a given day, whether it's lightning or wind, fog in the winter, whatever it is. Below that is a detailed weather update that's kind of event driven. A lot of times John Rizzo, my colleague at the Weather Service, will send out emails to our partners with these, but you can get from this website right here where that QRC code is. And anytime he sends something out like that, it'll go right to that website. And then similarly, to the right of it, we do a similar type of email for marine specific hazards. So, whether that's a wintertime cold front or a tropical storm this time of year. And then finally, social media. The Weather Service is active on 2 platforms. That's Facebook and X right now. So with that, I think that's my brief, and about a minute over, but yeah.
All right, thank you, Chip. We all have calendars. We know it's coming, but hopefully that brief will nudge some of us into actual action. I want to take a minute and welcome Madam Mayor, Commissioner Lee, and of course, your Commissioner District 2, Commissioner Kaufman. I don't think I see any other commissioners. Oh, Commissioner Haskell, welcome. And as you know, we're going to, one of you asked, what are we here for? What are you doing tonight? It's to tell you that we took a lot of notes the first time we got together. We met with your association. I thought it was a pretty good meeting. It was about 2 hours that we talked. I know you've talked also to the city manager separately. And so the idea here is to, one more time, hear what you have to say. Our Assistant City Manager, Todd Stoughton, is going to call you up one by one. If you need a microphone, say so, and I'll run a microphone to you. We'll get the list. We'll do the 3 minutes. Madam Mayor, do you want to speak at all? Okay, so we're going to do the residents, then we've got, I think, one member of the public, general public, and then we're going to let Commissioner Kaufman get the final word. And then we're going to take what we heard here again tonight, meet with the city manager, the assistant city manager, probably the commissioner of your district, and we're gonna come up with a plan that we're going to submit to the commission for their consideration. And that'll be at the June 4th meeting. It's on the Wednesday, the 4th. Unusual because usually you're used to a Tuesday. So without further ado, Mr. Stoughton, you want to call up the first speaker?
Yes, sir. Mr. Michio, you are first. And I'll set the clock for 3 minutes and remind you when your time's up.
Thank you.
Before I begin, Please make sure to take a copy of the Key West Liveaboard Association summary of our recent meeting with our port director. It identifies what's been neglected and what needs to be done to fix the marina's problems. As of today, there are 3 conflicting rent increase proposals before us from Port Marine Services. In 2023, a 2-tier rent resolution was approved, then postponed, but never rescinded. Just yesterday, it was recirculated by the Port Director's office to every marina resident. In 2024, another resolution was introduced to nearly double all liveaboard rents. That proposal is still pending. And based on a market rate study that has been discredited, but which the city has not rescinded or acknowledged that it is false. Last month, a 3rd proposal was introduced to increase rent for all liveaboards on the so-called transient docks to $55 a foot, again citing that same false study. It also incorrectly claimed that no one lives in those slips, which led to an abrupt postponement of the City Commission vote when the error was exposed. How can the Liveaboard Association propose any fair alternative when we have no clear understanding of what is actually being proposed? It's chaotic. Let's not forget what last month's proposal explicitly stated. Staff commissioned a market rate study to determine fair market rates to be charged at the marina. That statement being there is the crux of the issue. The so-called study has been thoroughly documented as flawed and misleading, containing knowingly false and omitted material information. If any increases are approved based on this study, it will cause serious financial harm to hundreds of residents, thousands of dollars a year per household. And yet, this study is still being referenced in official memorandums on the city's public docket and used to justify unjustified rent increases. It's bad policy. We've been asked to present our proposal tonight, but before any reasonable conversation about rent can happen, we'd like to know that these conflicting unsupported resolutions must be withdrawn, and 2, the discredited market rate study must be formally acknowledged as false and rescinded. We're trying to help the city avoid yet another scandal. Will Port Marine Services do this right now, tonight? Will you rescind that study? Will you pull all those resolutions so we can talk about a new one? Anyone
And
yield
that's your
their time?
sir. That's your time, sir.
Okay, Larry? Larry's going to yield time. I'll be done in a minute. There is so much inaccurate information that the residents and city leaders alike no longer know what to believe. If this study is not revoked immediately, we cannot, in good faith, continue these discussions without based on accurate information. Our mayor and city commissioners have the responsibility to make informed decisions, and our Port Marine Services has the obligation to provide accurate information to enable that. If this cannot happen tonight, if these inaccuracies remain here on the table, then we have to ask ourselves, whether it's even worth talking about if we can't do it based on facts that we all can agree on. Then we can talk about what the rent rate should be. But we need to clarify that, Steve. And I do honestly believe and know that market rate study, as far as the public knows, they think it's legitimate. And I reviewed, the city did another review of that by an appraisal and appraiser, and it said the purpose of this appraisal is a surface level appraisal. But this is a deep level problem. So it reviewed the market rate study that we found all those errors in and omissions. So in fairness to the appraisal, all the other stuff that's on that chart of all the things that were left out, they were all left out in that appraisal review. Now, in fairness to the appraiser, it's a surface level review. It wasn't commissioned to do a deep level dive into it. It needs to be addressed. I mean, how are we going to go forward if we don't even know what we can agree on are facts, and then we can agree on the numbers about what we propose? And we do want to work with the city on it, and we want to solve the marina's financing problems. That was a very productive meeting we had with Steve regarding the seawalls and all the issues to get the funding. But as far as the dollars and cents and what's being proposed, we need to base it on accurate information, and that's what we're asking for. Thank you.
Next up, I hope I'm not saying your name wrong, Joshua Askew.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Askew, and I'm 21 years old. I'm an active duty military member stationed in Key West, and I'm in Slip Marlin 4, which is my first attempt in a big investment in purchasing a house. I have been given about an hour or so by my command to participate and say my piece in the price increase in the marina and return back to base to relieve the current duty stander that stood by for me so I could be here today. First, I'm going to restate a point that has been said before by my father that represented me at the last meeting, that you will be trading guaranteed income for fluctuating funds with the empty slips in the summer not generating revenue, being a transient marina. My second point is that the marina will have a decrease on the size of vessels able to fit in the slips. My houseboat is 44 feet long and 21 feet wide, very similar to the size of a 40-foot catamaran. I pay about $200 extra each month due to the wider beam on my boat, but you cannot safely navigate a vessel of that size in a canal that is only 44 feet wide, which is the current open water space from boat to boat between Marlin 4 and Sailfish 1. The marina will be losing valuable water space that is currently making profit under the current vessels in the marina. The gap in the revenue between the current rate and the proposed rate narrows once you factor in that the current vessels are a lot larger than what would fit in the marina if it turned into a transient slip marina. Finally, Garrison Bight is a prime location to live in Key West because of the affordable costs and the proximity to everything on the island. In my opinion, the biggest reason that Garrison Bight is such a desirable place to live is because of the cost. If you increase the slip fees, Garrison Bight will no longer be a sought-after place to live by the workforce in the military of Key West. The amenities offered by Garrison Bight, or lack thereof, is the reason I chose Garrison Bight as a place to live, because in the other marinas, you get what you pay for, with pools, a bar, or free laundry facilities. And with the proposed price increase, the tenants that can afford the price and aren't forced out will be paying a pretty penny for a rusted laundry facility. With closing, the proposed rate increase would make Garrison Bight an unaffordable option for me on my military income and housing allowance.
Next up is Amanda Scott.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I am your workforce, one of many. I've been here over 20 years. I've built my life here. This is home. I love this island as you do. I'm a charter captain for 2 local-owned businesses, both of which I am their primary captain, and I work part-time producing art for a local artist. I'm happy to work hard to make my life here. My Key West story, like many others, has been a struggle with affordable housing. After displaced from Hurricane Irma, I discovered living on a boat is the only real affordable way to live here as a single working professional. I lived on another marina prior to Garrison Bight and have been at Houseboat Row for about a year and a half. This is my lifelong investment, my attempt to have a foothold on this island and stability. There's no way I could afford a house or property on my own. It took years, but I found somebody willing to own or finance, and I paid my life savings on half for the boat and a leasehold, and have a 10-year contract agreement with the previous owner. This is it. This is all I've got. It's all I've worked for, and if rent goes way up or doubles, poof, the value of my leasehold, my only and largest investment, would become extinct. I would then pay 9 more years on something that wouldn't exist. It would ruin me, bankrupt and homeless, essentially. I was told by Steve and Karen rent would never go up except according to the CPI. When asked before putting my life savings down, "You're exactly who we want in regards to workforce housing," they said, and I'd like to believe that that's true. Houseboat Row is an anomaly. It's uncomparable to other marinas. It's an historic and iconic piece of Key West history that should be preserved. It should be recognized by the city as it is by visitors and as an iconic imagery of Key West's unique history and architecture and quirkiness. The repercussions of a proposed rent increase, making it like other marinas, would change the face of the neighborhood. You'd lose the community. Then it loses its soul. Your decisions shape this island. My neighbors have a varying degree of panic, many with second homes, unlike me. I believe the long-term workforce needs a break. Like many, maybe some kind of exemption on the rent increase, have an evaluation at entry to allow a number of long-term workforce for affordable housing, as it was designed to do originally when given by the state. Now, the leasehold values, the price to get in the door, I believe this sustains the integrity of the marina. It applies to the elite workforce, like business owners and those of us working hard in the community, those of us able to pay rent and maintain vessels and floating homes and pay bills. That's what you want. For people that can't afford property, houses and property insurance, et cetera, they could thrive in this community. People that can invest in their home, invest in their neighborhoods, therefore in the community. I'm in favor of grandfathering in my neighborhood, as they are the ones who created this community. And to our elected officials, please, to the city commissioners and our city mayor, please for once to the city of Key West, catch our backs. The burden of the seawall repairs across the street at Charter Boat Row should not fall on us. I implore you, help us, allow us to keep our homes. Thank you.
Steve Jones.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Jones. I've lived on Tarpon Pier since 2001, Tarpon 24. I have been hearing some conflicting reports that there are more than one proposal out there. I'm only going to comment on what I see in front of me, and it came to my email, as several of you received it, from Karen Olson. By the way, are you Karen Olson? I'm glad to meet you. Thank you for sending this out, even though it's a little old. It does give me focus to make my comments. These whereases are interesting. If I were in a position of authority, I would move to delete the clause in the first whereas where it says we are offering a below market rate for monthly slip rentals. What is the market rate? There's some ambiguity here when you start comparing peaches to pickles, pineapples to pickles, because you're comparing the Garrison Bight to industry, to private ownership, whether it's a person or a corporation, who are out to make a profit. That's what businesses do. Garrison Bight is owned by the city of Key West. The city of Key West is a government agency. Government agencies are designed to provide service, not a profit. So you can't compare to other people like that. It just doesn't go. The other comment I noticed, something about differentiation of pricing for permanent residents and snowbirds, so to speak. I'm basically against that philosophically. I have trouble seeing my neighbor paying more than I am for the same privileges, for the same situation. However, it makes sense because there are other services provided by government agencies that are based on income. So I can live with that. And I don't know if that's the current proposal or that's just the one that's in front of me. There is supposed to be, according to this, a flyer coming out to determine who's a permanent resident and who isn't a permanent resident. It'd be interesting to see, maybe I didn't get it, or maybe it's not been a residential questionnaire, maybe it just hasn't been produced yet. But the last one that was sent out was full of fallacies in terms of trying to determine who's a permanent resident. We have to make sure we know what we're doing when we send out these questionnaires. Someone's livelihood could depend on it. I guess it's time for me to stop. Thank you.
Mina Harkins, please.
Good evening, Mina Harkins. I live on Marlin Pier on a motor vessel. And I want to speak to, as a retiree who's a part-time resident. I spend half of my time somewhere else, but I actually have retired to Florida. So I'm a Florida resident full-time, but because this is a motor vessel, I have a small place up in the Tampa Bay area where I go in the time that I'm not here. So I spend about half my time here. But we have a lot of people that are retired who are called snowbirds. And, you know, they came down here and invested in living at Garrison Bight because it was something they could afford. And I look around the marina now and I see all these places for sale. And I think, if I had put my boat up for sale a year and a half ago, I think I'd get more for it, and it might sell. Things seem to move very slowly now. So I want to say that a lot of damage has already been done as far as, you know, how people look at moving into that marina. It's really a shame that this has changed the whole concept, it seems, of that marina. I love being there. I participate in the community. I said I would keep the boat as long as I could get on and off of it. And I enjoy being an active resident when I'm here. And I promote Key West. I spend my funds here. And I just don't see why we had to go down this road. As many people have pointed out, the attraction of this was that, you know, it was a stable environment. And it's going to take a lot to regain stability and to regain trust. So whatever you do, I think a long implementation is really warranted to give time for things to settle down and for people to trust again that moving into that marina and buying someone's houseboat or vessel and the lease is going to be worth it, and they won't have a surprise in a short period of time. So thank you.
Mary Lou Lane.
Good evening. I'm Mary Lou Lane. I live on Tarpon Dock. I've been here since 1995. And when I first came here and I signed the lease, it said it was going to be Consumer Price Index, and that would stay that way. And that's the way I would like it. Consumer Price Index. Leave us alone. A while ago, they presented a $14 a foot for liveaboards and $28 a foot for non-residents. A resident is someone who has a Florida license, registered to vote, and you would be paying the $14 a foot. If you're not a resident, you'd be paying the $28 a foot. I don't care for the $28 a foot. I think that I'd like to bring that down because we have a lot of people that have been there for as long as I have or longer. So please reconsider. And it is a wonderful neighborhood, and it's a village within a village. And we also have the long-term transients, which are on Kingfish, and most of where Commissioner Donnie Lee has over on the other side, there's long-term transients, and they're all workforce. You have your workforce here. We have nurses, bartenders, you name it, we have it in the marina, and let's keep it that way. Because if you do something else, you're going to force them out, and then you're not going to have the workforce that you have now. And the last 2 years have been very hectic for us because of all the things that have happened to us. And I would say to all of you, we would like to have all our neighbors and we would like to keep it the same as we have. So please reconsider before, I'm talking to the commissioners and everyone, please reconsider before you start doing something. And I've talked to most of you commissioners, and please. And I'm very happy to hear that you are going to be looking for money for our seawall on Charter Boat Row side. And here's the other thing I'm worried about. Where are you going to put the people? If you move Charter Boat Row over to Kingfish, where are you going to put those people that have been there and they paid long-term transient? And most of, on Commissioner Lee's side is long-term transient too. There's only 10 liveaboards over there. And most of those people have been here for many, many years. And most of the time when people leave, they're leaving for medical problems and they have to go somewhere else. Or there's no reason why we can't go back and visit family where we come from. And we don't really have that many snowbirds over there. They've all been here for over as long as I have, and I've been here since 1995. So please reconsider, and thank you very much.
Steve King.
Good evening. My name is Steve King. I'm a one-year resident of the city of Marina. I'm a carpenter and boat builder. I built the boat I live on, and I want to thank the city of Key West for allowing me the opportunity to live at the marina. I also want to thank the commissioners, Steve, our port director, and Brian, our city manager, for meeting with us. It was a pleasure meeting all of you. It really was. The marina, as we know it, began when the city of Key West asked the state of Florida to relocate houseboats from the seawall on South Roosevelt Boulevard to their current location, specifically to preserve workforce housing. The state approved this, but with one clear condition, that the property be used for public service and public use. If not, it reverts back to the state. In 2016, ownership of the seawalls was transferred to the city, which then became responsible for their maintenance. The marina has worked extremely well. It provides affordable workforce housing at no cost to the city. And thanks to CPI-based rent increases, it generates over 20% profit used for repairs and upgrades. We've been told by the port director that the seawalls need future repairs, and he suggested raising the rents to pay for them. But we pointed out something important. There's already an infrastructure fund in place designated for seawalls and marina repairs. In fact, the fund was used just next door at Spencer's Boatyard, also city-owned, for the exact same purpose. Steve walked us through the repair timeline. The charter boat seawall needs work in 5 years, Angelfish comes next, and the houseboat seawall needs repair in 10 years. That gives us plenty of time to secure funding through the infrastructure fund, TDC, or state and federal grants and loans. The marina itself already has $4.5 million in reserve, restricted for marina use only, so there is no emergency and no financial crisis. Also discussed with Steve was a proven eco seawall repair alternative using a poly-resin injection system. That will repair seawalls without reconstruction at a fraction of the cost and without disruption of the tenants or the electrical or water infrastructure. We met with these guys. They were really good. Now we know about the rent study being used to raise rates. It compares our public marina to private luxury marinas. They are for profit and don't even allow houseboats. That comparison is not just inappropriate. It cannot legally be used to set public marina rates. Nobody is opposed to pulling our weight to contribute to our city and our way of life, but we have been presented with differing and, may I say, confusing rate increases that make it hard to move forward. To close, people bought into this marina to afford to live and work here. We pay for our boats, our maintenance, our utilities, and we cost the city nothing. We are an integral part of this community, and we want to keep it that way. Some may be able to afford rent increases, but many cannot. And in the middle of a housing crisis, there is no reason to make it worse. Thank you.
Colby Fisher.
Hello, Colby Fisher. I'm a terrible public speaker. I signed up in order to yield my time to Joe, but he didn't require my time. So I'm going to stumble through a couple seconds here, and forgive me because I'm not a good public speaker. But there are 2 points I'd like to cover right now. The study that wanted to raise our rates to $49 a foot was absolute complete garbage. The one thing they didn't analyze was what people are paying in the Old Town Marina, Key West by Old Town Marina, across from Turtle Cross and so forth and so on. There are 5 liveaboards there. Those liveaboards are paying $29 a foot. Nevertheless, they want us to pay $49 a foot, way out here. Number 2, commercial slips. They're paying $37 a foot, Old Town, prime real estate. Why do they want us to pay $49 a foot? Absolutely. The one place they didn't compare was apples to apples, City of Key West Marina to City of Key West Marina. Why was that forgotten? Tell you what, I will gladly pay $29 a foot. Put me Old Town. Put me right across from Turtle Cross. It doesn't. I'm happy. I'm young. I'm single. Hey, put me where the action is. I'll pay $20 a foot. But I'm not going to pay $49 a foot out here in the middle of nowhere, because that's what we really are. We're in the middle of nowhere compared to what they're charging $20 a foot and $37 a foot. Number 2 is that I have a business, and you can either raise your prices or lower your costs in order to make money. Well, what we need to do is we need to look at our costs. Right now, we're paying $139,900 a year for that one guy who walks around once an evening, up and down the dock. That's it. We're paying him $30 an hour for 12 hours a day, 365 days a year. Works out to right about $139,900. Why are do we live in such a dangerous place where we need to have some guy walk by one time? And what does he do? Number 2, we're paying $24,000 for that police car to sit across from the the mooring field where they have their dock. Why are we paying $24,000 for Key West City Police Key West police car to sit there? What is that doing for us? We're paying, why are we paying over $150,000 a year? It works out to over $1.87 per day per person for nothing. Cut back on that. We can save money here. We can save money there. But that's my point. Is that you can? Third thing, look at the Spencer's Boatyard. That's going to cost, I think, $2 point something million in order for the repairs to be done there. If every penny that Spencer's pays in their rent was put towards that work, it would take 25 years to repay that. It's ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous, and this is what makes us all upset, is that we had value for money. Hey, I'll pay it, but we're not getting our value for money.
Cynthia Schultz.
I'm not very good at this either. I guess what I want to know is, we all signed a contract when we came here, right? To become a dock member or owner and a dock renter and things. I don't understand. It says in October we're going to make any kind of changes. And what month is this? Is this October? I don't understand how this keeps going on and on and on when October is not here even, and how it got started. I mean, if we don't follow the rules right from the start, what is that? What kind of contract did we sign? I mean, who's changing it? Is it us that's changing it, us the dock owners or renters, or is it the city that's changing it? Doesn't that have to be changed first before you make this other change? I don't understand. Maybe somebody could explain this to me, how it can be changed without us knowing it, I mean, I guess you told us, but how can you do it with us? I mean, the changes of voting and things, making changes to the contract. We made a contract with you, and all the changes of the contract would be in October. And this has been going on for months and months, and I thought it all happened in October. The changes, the increase and stuff like that. Right. Right. Okay,
Also, what you're saying, how can it happen? We have a contract. Again, the contract initially is 1 year.
okay,
After that, it becomes a month to month.
okay.
Once it becomes a month to month, there can be modifications to
But,
that contract.
but is everybody involved in those modifications? Or do you guys, or does the people who made the contract, just the
There have been
ones?
modifications
Oh,
to the contract since 2018.
okay,
Which you're
all right.
familiar with that. This change has been discussed for about 2 years.
Yeah,
We're nearing the end. This is
thank
this
you.
is your chance to give your comments, and then afterwards we can answer any
we
questions you
just
have.
need
But
to all
I'm going to start you
understand how
again.
that goes, because, I mean, a lot of us don't understand why this is all happening when we're not.
Okay, so
they
some
have-
of this,
like you- somebody said there's a
potentially it could be
meeting
this.
tomorrow.
So we were asked to resend the resolution that passed. and
Okay.
That was going to take effect in October of 2024. However, elected leadership and the city manager, was it 23? No, it was going to be October 23. And so your elected leadership and the city management have chosen to not enact that.
Okay,
And as we work through, tried to have some meetings and some other, different proposals.
changed to every month.
So
right?
nothing
On a
is,
month to
nothing really, it basically has been delayed.
month? Okay,
And the intent now is to submit something for commission approval that will take place in October.
okay.
So it's basically been a couple-year delay. But
I
not-
knew we
so-
had some delays with, and it had started a long time ago, but I didn't know how it was, when we didn't know about a lot of meetings, a lot of things that were going on. We weren't informed, like somebody said something happened yesterday. I never got any information about something that happened yesterday. Somebody said something first thing in
I
this
believe the
meeting.
city manager met with the Liveaboard Association. Is that right, Joe? Yesterday? Okay, that's what happened.
Yesterday? Oh. I know something happened a few days ago. Oh, that's what you're talking about, what happened a few days ago? That wasn't yesterday, but, okay, oh. Right, but that was a few days ago, not yesterday. I heard it as yesterday, so I wondered. Okay, all right, I guess, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. It's gonna happen. Well, I'll live with it. And I hope, like Mary Lou said, I hope still up to the original contract was. Our housing, like, we're all workforce, most of us.
I'm going to go ahead and invite Jeffrey Siegel to the mic. Good evening. My name is Jeff Siegel, and I'm here representing an organization called Protect Our Residential Neighborhoods. We were designed to give some kind of balance, some kind of representation to the neighborhoods in Key West, to make sure that everything's being represented properly. And oftentimes, developers get a lot of say in what happens, and the quality of life is often put aside. And so we wanted to make sure we were representing the quality of life. What we did when we started was we took the Key West and we looked at it as a quilt made up of different pieces of fabric. One of those pieces of fabric is Garrison Bight. And I lived on a boat for 18 years before moving here. So we were 6 people in our group. Early in the formation of a group, I said, I'm taking Garrison Bight. These are my people. And I didn't know all this was going on. So I've spent a bunch of time learning about what's happening, following the rate increases, and kind of I wanted to step back and understand exactly who are the people here, what is it that we're doing, and what's actually happening by these changes. And so I started doing some analysis of who are the workforce, and basically Garrison Bight is workforce. We've heard it here a bunch tonight already, and a lot of fixed income retirees. And that's not 100%, that's probably in the 90%. I don't know, Joe would probably know that. So we started looking at the workforce and putting together numbers and putting together data. And what we found first is that if if these increases go in as planned, somewhere between 40% and 56% of the workforce boats, they'll be forced out. They'll be gone. And I'm glad that the mayor's here because although we may disagree on some items and how to get there, we're both pretty big proponents of workforce housing. And I'm so happy you're here about this. So like here's an example. These are workforce housing. These are the workforce people. These are the employers. So Moondog is on here, Keys Energy, First State Bank, Captain Tony's. These are the people that work there. But that's not really it. That's just page one. This is the workforce, and we can go through the entire page. Bella Construction, I'll pick any, random, The Bull, Key West Botanical Gardens. There's a lot of volunteers that work here. You know, I mean, it's filled. This is real. And this isn't even complete. This is as best because the problem is we went boat to boat, but some of the people are out working, so they couldn't respond. This is what we have. So take 40% of this. I'm sorry. Take 40% of this. Who's going to contact these employers and say these people are gone? Who's going to do that? You know, this is not who we are as a city. This isn't. And I hope the commission sees that, and I hope we do the right thing just to make sure these people can stay here. Thank you.
Commissioner Kaufman.
Hello, everybody. Sam Kaufman, Commissioner, District 2. Again, it's great to be here with a majority District 2 voters. Thank you for being here. I too want to thank Steve and Karen for helping with all of this, and our city manager, and our mayor, and Commissioner Lee, and Commissioner Haskell for being here. It shows how important this meeting is, and how important our city marina is in Garrison Bight. You know, one of the speakers, I think it was Ms. Harkins, who said, you know, why is this taking so long? And this has really been a big drag on the community, and really the harm is done. That's what I heard, Ms. Harkins, right? And that really saddens me, and I think it's true. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The process of government is not always clean and easy and quick. And you know, we were supposed to have a workshop on June 26th of last year, and that turned into a meeting to terminate the city manager on that very day. And so that happened. And so that workshop had to be canceled. And then we had a transition in leadership in the city. And in the meantime, there was that process which sort of in part delayed it. And then we also said we wanted to see the market rate study and so on. And so all these things took part in explaining why there was a delay. Nonetheless, the damage was done. Ms. Harkins is right. And some of us talked about that concern at that point a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we first heard about the interest in the city raising rates. And we've had many meetings where the majority of the folks who come to the meeting are from District 2, from the city marina. And so here we are, and I'm hearing also folks here say, well, how do we respond when we don't know what the city proposal is? I think that's a reasonable question. I don't know how we can have that full discussion. I think Mr. Jones, was it Mr. Jones, I think, said to ask that question. How do we have a full discussion of this without knowing what the proposal is from the city? That is a concern, because I do think there is a win-win-win here, maybe, or close to a win-win-win that we could reach. But without really knowing what the city's preference is, at least city management, and having a real negotiation back and forth, it's hard to really know where we stand now as a community. So my overall pitch and request is, and I know that no one wants this to be delayed more, but
keep in mind, the next city commission meeting is June 4th. The deadline to publish is May 29th, May 30th, if the city clerk can push it to May 30th. So today is May 21st. That's only 8 or 9 days. So that means to get on the June 4th calendar for the meeting, everything that the city's going to be proposing has to be coordinated in the next 8 or 9 days. And so keep that in mind in terms of, well, how do you, as members of the Liveaboard community in the city marina, adequately respond to that, right? You may not know until May 29th or May 30th when it's published on the agenda what exactly the city is proposing. So where is the back and forth? You follow what I'm saying? That's a concern I have right now in this juncture. And I'm not in favor of delaying necessarily anymore, but on the other hand, I think there should be some more interaction between your leadership of the Sea Dogs Association, members of the community that are concerned, and city management. I certainly want to be involved in that, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So what really is a concern to me, and those of you who have heard me before say that I have this concern that people in the marina, and I've heard the word tonight, use the word panicked, worried, stressed, anxious. And you've heard me before many times say, these are not only city residents, but they're city tenants. And from my perspective, they should be treated the best. They're not only city residents, but they're also city tenants. And we're in a situation where people are anxious, nervous, panicked, and upset. So we need to focus, I think, on how we can, at the best that we can, get to the win-win-win. What do I mean? What I mean is, how do we serve the budget as best as we can? How do we serve the Liveaboard community as best as we can? There has to be a way that we can do this within reason. That's what I think. And I think Steve and Karen in good faith are trying to get there too. I believe that, and I think our city manager is trying to get there too. But can we get that all done in the next 8 days? I'm not sure, but you've heard my concern about that. We've heard really good explanations of the history of Houseboat Row and the Liveaboards. I don't have to go into that. For me, what I really appreciated from the beginning when Steve, our port director, first talked about this whole process 2 years ago is he was talking about affordability. And that sort of has gotten lost in this process, I think, in terms of the more recent months. But at its core, our main guiding principle should be that no one is forced out of the marina. I think that should be our main guiding first principle. If we can all agree to that, maybe we can get to that win-win-win. And that's what I believe. I don't believe anyone in city government wants anyone forced out of the marina. But so that should be our number one guiding principle. That's what I think. And that, by the way, includes the long-term liveaboards on the transient docks. These are, thank you. There are nurses at the hospital, city workers. I mean, there are people that work for our government that live in these situations. So, all right. I just want to say a couple things. So obviously, we would prefer to have just the CPI increases. I agree with Mary Lou Lane. You know, I don't know how my colleagues feel about that. I'm not sure that's going to work. Whatever it is, we need to really focus in on what is driving this. What is driving this are the seawall repairs, right? The seawall repairs, I mean, that's what the city management is saying, that there's a lot of need for infrastructure repairs. I received an email from our finance director today, and for those of you who don't know, my first 7 or 8 years in office, and by the way, I'm in my 10th year now, first 7 or 8 years, there were no capital reserves in the city marina budget. Everybody know that? There were practically no reserves, okay? Today, there are $5.6 million in capital reserves. Let's give ourselves a hand. $5.6 million. The marina has been successful in the last 2 to 3 years. Why? Because we have $5.6 million. So the way that the city budget works, if you don't know, infrastructure projects are programmed over years. The operating word is programmed. What does that mean? It means that the city historically does not incur debt for infrastructure projects. What does that mean? Well, there's been talk about bonding and other projects that the city may do in the future, but historically, the city has not really taken out loans or bonds in order to pay for projects. What does the city do? As a responsible entity, it saves money over time. It save year after year after year until it has enough money to pay for the project. And that's called programmed. You program that project over the years enough to pay for the project. So what I'm suggesting is, now we have $5.6 million in capital reserves. So where does that fit in to that programming? And I think, I don't know if it was Joe or someone else said that in 10 years, the seawall by the liveaboards has to be repaired, and the other docks have other years that are designated, 5 years or 7 years from now. But I think it would be really helpful if we could see that programming over the years and how much money is needed for each of those projects, and then how much money can come from other revenue sources, the TDC, infrastructure tax fund, other revenue sources, including, by the way, the yacht club. Okay, so I am promoting that right now. That the question is, remember the yacht club is in the city marina Garrison Bight. They pay $1 a year. So we have to, if everyone's pitching in, everyone's pitching in. So we have to be fair and reasonable to all concerned. So but if we have that programming over the years, then we could really understand what the unmet need is for the city. And then we could really understand what the increase for slip rents are needed. Anyway, so I'd like to see that, and I haven't seen that yet, and maybe city manager has that. So to close, I just want to say, I still think there is a possibility to be fair and reasonable to all concerned to get that win-win-win. But what we need is we need to work together to try to come up with that. It's because we don't want the workforce, the guiding principle, remember, no one should be forced out of the marina. Now, the one last thing I would say, well, there are pros and cons for all these concepts that we've heard about. The 2 tiers, the grandfathering. I think Ms. Harkins said it also best about stretching it out over a long period of time, any increases, to give people the chance to catch up and be prepared for these increases. All of these ideas are good ideas, but they have to be flushed out along with the programming of what's needed to pay for the seawalls. That's what I'd like to see. And then the last thing I want to say is, when we're done with this process on the budget and the slip rent, don't go away. We have a lot more issues to address. Okay, with the city marina, right? Everybody knows that, right? We need ADA bathrooms. We need to address parking, right? We need to address the overnight guest situation, which is ridiculous. We need to address mail delivery, which thankfully our city manager is taking up again. I thank him for that. And we need to think about having annual leases, not just month to month. So don't go away. Stay involved with the association, please, because we have to continue. We have to get past this process, and then we will continue thereafter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before I turn it back over to Steve, Madam Mayor, are you or any of the other commissioners like to speak? All right, Steve, the floor is yours.
Well, everyone, thank you for your time and effort that it's been. It's been 2 years of this. And I will tell you that I will get on the city manager's calendar, and we will do what we can to try to get this done sooner rather than later. I think everybody is worn out with the rate thing. And but I think 8 days is enough time for us to get together, to do another couple back and forths. I think these meetings are back and forths. And we had a 2-hour talk with the association. I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned about the association in that when we started this 2 years ago, I was wondering, we had somebody that was the spokesperson, and then we had somebody else that said, no, I'm the spokesperson. And then we have we have to be the managers for everyone. And maybe everybody's not on board with the association, but I do feel like your heart's in the right place and you're representing most from what I hear with the, your audience participation. But remember, maybe not everybody is in the association. And so, I can't lose sight that everyone is involved. And I don't know if has anyone in here not heard of the association? Okay, well, that gives me heart that, what's that? Yeah, good. I like it too. I mean, it's a point of contact. It's much easier to talk to the Charter Boat Row folks because they vote. Everybody gets a vote. They pick leaders. And then when we go to talk about things, I understand that they're representing everyone. But I think we spent a lot of time here until this association came up kind of haphazard. Yeah. Yeah, that's good, and that's good. And I hope, I know you'll make every effort to contact everyone so that people, and that's a conduit for communication. And I think communication is really important, but I think I'll go back and end it with something that Commissioner Kaufman said. We're going to try to find a win-win-win for everything. I should end right there. I tell you, I got a little experience in this. We're gonna at the base, right, the military base, we had a marina. And my idea was I want you to recapitalize the marina, pay for the maintenance that you need to do. I want you to pay all your employees, and I want you to make $1. And that was because if you're making more than $1, then soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines are paying too much in rent. However, there are people outside of this room that may say, and this comes from the 7, I'm going to need the guidance from the 7, and certainly then, through the city manager, they may say, other people would say, hey, people that don't live in the marina would say, hey, you have millions in assets here, and you can't give me anything. Right now, the intent that I'm operating under is that I'm not trying to make money in this marina. I just want to keep the marina from falling apart. There may be the reality is there's another probably part of town that says, how can I own an asset this valuable and not contribute to ad valorem taxes? Certainly the other marina, and that was the intent with the bond, is, make money and give it back to the taxpayers. That's what we're doing. Some would say we're not making enough money down there, but we have to think about all those things. But right now, I'm operating sort of like that Naval Air Station Key West. I want to be able to make $1 at the end, but that, we can't have crumbling infrastructure. And I'm proud of us for having $5 million too, because then maybe we'll be able to, the sooner we can do the projects, the cheaper they are. So that's the intent there. And again, this time I really will end. As always, please come talk to us. One of us is usually sitting there. Dave Marsicano, raise your hand. Most of you have met him. Huge asset, been in the marina business forever. He's over there most of the time. Talk to any of us. You talk to Dave, we're going to hear about it. But doors open. Come talk to us. Communication, you can never do enough, right? So that's on that note, we'll end, and I will talk to you offline afterwards. All right, thank you again.